Hi, hello, and welcome. I'm definitely not Lad, and you're watching me pug my way to 2.8k rating on a Guardian Druid. In this episode, the idea is to run my 17 Freehold and then see where we go from there. Probably going to run one of the other dungeons that I haven't cleared on a high key this week. Going to aim for a 16 or higher on every dungeon, and we'll see how many we can do. Things started with a Freehold 17 run. We got this build going, which is Ray's build. I'm still getting used to it, so I'm probably going to suck at keeping iron fur up properly. But we should be good. The group seems to be quite competent, so I don't think we're going to have any issues there. Okay, I think we've stabilized. That was really rough on the healer, probably. Like, I was just getting my ass beat way too hard. But serves me right for bringing in a build that I'm not familiar with into 17 key. As good as this raise build is, I'm horrible at using it. I genuinely think I fucking suck at it. My commentary is very poor this run because I am a little bit lost in the sauce here. We're gonna wait for mana here and let the healer drink, and then we're gonna pull the boss. Yeah, the more I play like this, the more I feel like I just need to shut up while I'm playing, like while I'm doing the run, and switch to commentating post-run. Because my performance is like horrible just because I'm commentating in the middle of the run instead of just focusing on executing. I'm not really happy with this run. We did great, like we didn't wipe, we didn't do anything. One death is perfectly fine. That's on the first boss as well, where the guy just stood in a bird, got charged and killed. Like it's a great run. Objectively, this is a good run. I just got so, like, my commentary was so poor, I feel like I failed. I don't know. I feel bad about this run because of the commentary, but it was a good run objectively. People are doing great DPS, they're doing the mechanics, they're doing everything right. There's nothing to complain about in this run other than my commentary. So I'm not sure how much of this I'm actually going to show. Get rid of the afflicted. There we go. Very good. Okay, so this is the first time I'm doing a commentary after having played the actual dungeon, so I can kind of recall what's happening. But for the most part, I'm going to be looking at a video of me doing it, and then just commentating over it and talking about what I'm doing. Here I'm going to use movement speed for the group. I'm going to try and group everything up. We're going to pop Bloodlust here. I believe we agreed to do that at the beginning. I'm looking at the worm, the bedded maggot, to interrupt him with my incapacitating roar, because he will one-shot someone if they stand in it, especially on whatchamacallits, on fortified. At the same time, I was looking at the Blood Priest and making sure that I interrupt the Gift of Gahoon and Dark Reconstitution. The Gift of Gahoon makes an enemy, it prevents the enemy from dying for 20 seconds. You can dispel it, it's a magic effect, you can remove it, but we have the Shaman that could have done that, but I like to kick it rather than rely on the fact, or rather rely on the Shaman having Purge, because you need to talent it now, it's not baseline, I believe. If you have a priest, you can count on them removing dispelling magic. Here again, I'm tunneling on the priest to interrupt, and I believe I did interrupt the thingy thing. And here's the darker constitution. It was interrupted by the Mulf, the healer, the priest. I'm dispelling one of the afflicted souls. So I probably heard the Wilhelm scream from my WeakAura. By the way, you can get all my WeakAuras and all of my UI and add-ons and everything on my Discord. It's in the video description. You can take a look over there. Anyway, in this group, the priority would be kicking the Harrowing from the Befouled Spirit, the big giant mask. That'll do a shit ton of damage. It'll usually wipe you on Fortified if you let it go through. The Hunter kicked that, so I switched to the Priest, and I interrupted the Priest's thingy thing with the stuffy stuff. What's it called? I'm blanking. Even when I'm doing a recorded commentary, I'm blanking. Gift of Gahoon. The priest then, or the blood priest then, used the other thing while he was enraged, and I couldn't interrupt them with an incapacitating roar or anything, so I had to sue them. Alright, moving on to the first boss. We were using Bloodlust here. We didn't use it at the start. That was my mistake if I said we did. I saw the Afflicted Soul pop up in the background, so I wanted to grab that so nobody else has to waste a global. I am the lowest DPS, so my global is worth less than anyone else's. Ideally, the healer would do it when there's just one. Here I'm struggling to hold aggro because somebody is blasting the ad. I think they hard switched to the ad. It was the marksmanship hunter. Now here we're going to lose a couple of people. I instantly battle res the rogue, but then somebody else gets hit by one of the other rot things. I believe it was the hunter because he was too busy blasting the DPS. I don't have a battle res, so I just opt to keep mashing the boss. It's best to kick the boss rather than the blood mirror. The blood mirror has does less damage, I believe. Here I'm going to start rezzing. I noticed that the shaman is rezzing, so I'm going to switch into travel form and head to the next group. I think I type out "don't pull," please don't body pull. Yes, and I'm talking about the ticks on the left. I don't want that group to be pulled because then that has to kind of change my routing, which I don't like to change. And also, they're a massive pain in the ass to kill. Uh, because when the little ticks die, they explode. Here again, I'm looking at the maggot. I'm using incapacitating roar to make sure that the maggot gets CC'd and to prevent that cast going off. I've dropped Ursol's Vortex. I think it just ran out, or I didn't push them far enough, so not many got pulled back. But I was waiting for the what's it called, for the maggot to cast again. Here I see Binding Shot is active on pretty much all of the enemies, so I move away and force the enemies to walk towards me, which forces them to get stunned because of the Binding Shot. I dispel one of the Afflicted Souls. There's another one in the back. I think that one goes off. So here I pop Survival Instincts to try and survive that, I think. I'm not 100% sure if I do or don't. Apparently I don't. I just used a Frenzied Regen charge, though. Right, I'm looking at the Blood Swarmer. I want Blood Swarmers to die. I think I body pulled the the other Blood Swarmer, but luckily the first one dies. Ideally, you don't want to pull more than one Blood Swarmer at a time. I think I turned around to grab the Afflicted Soul that spawned in. Here I charge the Blood Swarmer in order to root him so he can't reach the target anymore. I use Incapacitating Roar again to interrupt the Fetid Maggot. I do try to keep my CC available for the Fetid Maggots because they can straight up wipe your group. Here I think I'm going to knock them back. There was only one person in it. I should have used my knockback there looking back at it now, but I didn't. I think I was hoping that nobody was in that. Here I do use my knockback right as it enrages. If it had enraged right before the knockback, I would have failed that, and that could have been very costly indeed. Here I opt to pull two Blood Swarmers because we're waiting for the Shaman to run back. Oh no, the Shaman's back, never mind. But yeah, I figure just the two Blood Swarmers in and of themselves should be fine to kill, because there's nothing else that I have to worry about. I noticed that the Afflicted Soul is not being removed or healed to full, so I just pop it with a quick Remove Corruption. Or it got healed because I see that my Remove Corruption is not on cooldown, but at any rate, I tried to Remove Corruption. The Hunter is kiting the Blood Swarmer very far away from the group instead of just tanking it. He should have tanked it. Here I had a moment of hesitation. I wanted to go into the next group or stick with this one. But I decided to go for this one because it's a nice pull. Thankfully, somebody grabbed the diseased lasher that I failed to pull. I also used incapacitating roar on the fetid maggot, and then I dispelled one of the guys in the back, the afflicted soul. Again, I'm looking at the maggot. I'm going to knock it back, I believe. Yes, there it is. I think I was looking if somebody else would drop any sort of CC on it, but nobody was doing it, so I opted to knock it back. I think I also removed Enrage from the fetid maggot to allow it to be CC'd. And now I think I say that we go do third, or that we come back with Bloodlust, right? So we're going to go do third boss instead of the second boss so that we can Bloodlust the second boss, because in my opinion the second boss is a massive pain in the ass. So I'm looking at the Deaf Speaker and the Horror. I wanted to make sure that I interrupt the Deaf Speaker. Here nobody is kicking this, so I'm going to use Incapacitating Roar. There were 3 kicks available, 4, because I think the Rogue used this kick right after I used my Incapacitating Roar. I think I removed the Enrage from the Worm using my Soothe. No, I used it on the Deaf Speaker just now. Removing one of the Afflicted Souls, and I think I give everyone movement speed and we move on to the next group before this even finishes and dies. Nope, I use it a bit later. Should have started moving to chain better, but I guess it works for this. Again, I'm looking at the Death Speaker. The other guys don't cast anything. The Death Speaker casts Wicked Frenzy, and he casts this other spell that you can see the cooldown of that's now off cooldown. He's going to use it here. That applies a damage over time effect on one or multiple targets. I'm not sure, but it's a pretty nasty one. So if you want to MD, you usually save your MD for that if you have a priest. And you try to overlap it so that the reanimated guardians have a shield up, and then you just remove all the shields and the dot at the same time, and it's a very high value masked spell. Ideally, the shaman purges here whenever any of the reanimated guardians have a shield. Here the focus is to interrupt the curses. Ideally you would kick everything, obviously. If you have a good group that uses their interrupts, you use it on the on everything, and you interrupt everything. There's enough time between the casts to make that happen. Here I'm too busy typing kick to actually just use my own kick, which I think I ended up doing anyway. I think the paladin didn't use his kick, even though this was channeling the curse into us. Again, we're waiting for a kick. The debuff, what it does, the Withering Curse, is it increases your shadow damage taken, which basically, if shadow bolts don't one-shot you before it, after it they will. So each stack, so I currently have 4 stacks, each stack actually increases your shadow damage taken by 10%, and it also reduces your damage taken, or it also reduces your damage done by 10%. That's why it took so long to kill these guys with those 4 stacks, because you're doing 40% less damage. Now on this boss, the idea is to use his shockwave ability and his upheaval ability to destroy the mushrooms. You can also walk onto the mushrooms. It puts a pretty bad dot on you, which is a disease. Here we go. I think the rogue is using Cloak of Shadows and then just grabbing. No, I think it's the paladin. Somebody was using an immunity to grab as many of the mushrooms as they can. Now here, I started randomly moving. That was because there was somebody using an upheaval right where I was pointing the boss. I was trying to point the boss at the mushrooms. Ideally, you use the upheaval at a spot where the boss isn't being pointed at, because hold on, I think my headset just died. Because what happens when you use the upheaval here is when you use the upheaval where the boss is being pointed, the shockwave gets wasted, and you can't waste any of the upheavals or any of the shockwaves unless you have someone with an immunity who can go and clear a bunch of mushrooms. Here the same thing's happening, but I reacted to it quickly enough and moved the shockwave to affect these mushrooms because the other person was using the upheaval on a spot nearby to the boss. Single mushrooms like that, I usually eat them, and I use one frenzied regen to make sure that they get cleaned up. Again, this person's dropping it where I'm pointing the boss, which is not ideal, but it's not like he has anywhere else to use them. There's a shockwave, it goes on to nothing because there's no mushrooms, and I think the boss dies before the next bullet hell goes off, or this big AoE. So that's wonderful. And now I say we clear more trash because there's 82 seconds left on the Bloodlust sated. So yeah, bit of trash, and then second boss is what I say. Here I'm tunneling on the Defiler to make sure that I interrupt the curse, because I don't trust the group to interrupt it. I think I use an incapacitating roar to interrupt the grotesque horrors. Dark echoes, yes, there it is, the roar. And I'm going to kick the Bloodsworn Defiler curse. There it is. Ideally, your group would take care of some of these kicks, but you can't trust that your group will do that, especially in lower keys, especially on Tuesday evening when everyone's just trying to get their whatchamacallit, their weekly clear. So they're really not, they're zoned out, they're ready to go to bed, they're just trying to do this before the reset. And I say Tuesday for reset because I play on EU, so the reset is on Wednesday. Anyway, now we're headed back to the boss with 20 some seconds left on the sated debuff. So by the time we get to the boss, we'll be able to Bloodlust right as we pull it. I don't know why I'm opening my inventory here. I'm not sure what I was checking, but yeah. This isn't exactly ideal, but you don't know how much DPS your group does, so you don't know how to plan out your Bloodlusts. Ideally, you would Bloodlust on the first pull, and then you would slowly clear, and you would have, you would have Bloodlust available for the boss right at the time you finish clearing the trash around it, or after having cleared a bit more trash like the first group on the side. Here people weren't positioning to bait the charges towards the like a nearby wall, because what you can do is basically you can stack everyone other than the tank in such a way that the charge goes into a wall, because the charge always targets someone other than the tank. You can see it's charging over in that direction. I opted to just keep it here near the middle, because that way people can just go. The boss doesn't have to move much to get to the middle, because when he does the tantrum, which is going off here, he tries to get to the middle. So if you have him in the corner of the room, he's going to travel a lot, and the resulting little maggot things on the ground are actually going to be spread out further away. So ideally you want him to, after he does the charge frontal charge combo, you want to move him to the center of the room before the tantrum goes off. But people weren't pre-positioning to bait the chargers, so I just decided to move it to the center early and let the chargers go wherever the hell they want. We blasted the boss anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We didn't even get a second tantrum, so it was a very quick kill, and I'm glad that we used the bloodlust on it because it was a bit messy because people weren't baiting the charges. I think I also communicated to the shaman that I'm going to use my roar first to give movement speed on the first tantrum, and that on the second tantrum he should use his Windrush Totem. I'm not sure if he has Windrush Totem or not, but yeah, because I don't think I remember him using it a single time, but maybe somebody did see him use it, so, and they can correct me and be like, haha, he has Windrush Totem, you blind bastard. Here what you can do actually, you can pull this whole group, the Deaf Speaker and the Guardians, without pulling this worm. So if you ever have too much percent, like if somebody body pulls something you didn't plan on, you can actually skip that worm. I think you can pretty much skip this whole group if you just hug left. But yeah, if you just need to skip a little bit, you can skip this worm. And if you need to skip a lot, you can skip this whole group. You don't have to fight any of it. You can also skip, I believe, the guy, the one guy that does the curse. You can just kill the one worm after the third boss. But usually my routing is to kill everything that I killed in this run, minus I believe we pull one extra worm. Now here with this trash pull, you want to keep kicking the grotesque horror, and then just make sure that you move out of this AoE that I'm about to stand in and get feared. Multiple people got feared. Here I am spamming my interrupt, which I realize is on cooldown, and then I come back in with an incapacitating roar to interrupt those dark echoes because it's a really bad AoE. I'm moving the Corruptor a bit away from those tentacles that he spawns, making sure I don't get hit by that fear. I remove, what are they called? The Enrage from the Grotesque Horror. Here I realize that I haven't been paying attention to the Afflicted Souls, and I grabbed the one in the back. Somebody else cleared the other one, luckily. I believe somebody body pulled after they got feared. They body pulled that worm. The rogue was an absolute MVP here, and he dropped the blind on it, which was, I think I even wrote out 11 out of 10. Yeah, 11 out of 10 blind. It was really, really good. I did not know you could blind these guys, so that was absolutely amazing. That probably saved us a lot of grief. Okay, somebody got the Afflicted Soul. There's another one in the back. I was trying to get to it, but somebody else got it, I think. No, I got it with my Remove Corruption. But yeah, this is probably one of the tougher pulls in the dungeon, because there's a lot, like, these guys, the Corruptors, can just start pointing in random directions. Here they both point at me, which is perfect. That's ideal, because I'll always try to point them away from the rest of the group. You're also focusing the Dark Echoes casting thing, the Grotesque Horror. You want to kick it. Ideally, like in a super high fortified key, or in a super high anything key, you're going to want to kick each and every single one of its casts, right? Because then your healer can DPS, and you're just using a global. Here I struggled to target the Afflicted Soul because it was in the background. I had to click its health bar instead of just clicking on it, which is sometimes problematic because my mouse dexterity is not really that good. And we clean up this pull. Very nice. Here we're waiting for the little bit of RP to finish. I think I typed something out to the group, something along the lines of, please bait to existing zones. And this is the part where it turns into a shit show. People don't seem to know what to do here. The issue being that they are just, what you're supposed to do is stand here where I'm standing, so that you bait the Vile Expulsion into the room. Here, it was baited into the other side, which is, it's fine, it's whatever. I'll just start running in this direction, right? I move him away so that there's a gap behind the boss and these zones. But what people are doing, they're standing on the behind the boss so that they don't get parried. This vile explosion, it went in the correct direction, which is good. So the second one we did perfectly. The first one was weird, but the second one we did perfectly. Now this one is where it goes to shit, because there's somebody behind the boss, even that rogue or whoever the hell that is. They just all go and stand behind the boss. And I think I type existing zones. I don't think people understood what that. Yeah, not behind him. I don't think people understood what that meant. Here I'm trying to again position the boss so that we do the correct strategy, which is point him into the existing zones, but everyone's standing. Yeah, and here I'm losing my shit. I'm glad I didn't live commentate this, because I would be a salty, cussing bastard at this point. I'd be very, very nasty. But yeah, at this point I'm trying to salvage the run and just, run the just do the dungeon do the boss fight as best I can. I'm trying to stand in such a way that even if he does target me, at least then at least in that case, if he targets me with the Vile Expulsion, it'll go in the correct direction. I sort of gave up on communicating anything to the group. I'm just trying to position in such a way that people can get cleansed by the little zone. Here I'm trying to stand in this thingy thing, Spirit Link Totem. Okay, we managed to bait one of the explosions again correctly. And yeah, this is just like on any serious key, this would have been a wipe, but luckily it's only a 16 key, so we can get away with doing stupid shit like this. Here I start telling them to stack on me and not to be behind the boss, but it's kind of too little too late. Probably something I should have told them before the boss fight, but they were doing okay on everything else, maybe not on the second boss because they weren't baiting the charges. But at this point, they're starting to figure out what's happening. Like a few people were starting to stand on top of me. And here we finish. Yeah. People were saying GG. I said shit show. I think I instantly leave because I was really, really upset. Because I hate this boss so much. Because groups never know what to do. But yeah, this was the first time of me commentating after having recorded a run. And if you guys enjoyed this more than you enjoy me live commentating and stuttering over my words, let me know. I'd really, really like to know if you'd like this more or not. So in this episode, we went through a Freehold 17 key that I had. It went well, but my commentary was really poor. I kept stuttering and pausing and just not knowing what I wanted to say, because I kept being like, all of my concentration had to go into the raise build. And I think I said as much where I wasn't satisfied with my commentary. It was a great run. I think we two-starred it, and we had only one death, which was on the first boss. It went really well. It was a good run. Like, looking from the outside, without me talking over it, it was a great run. But I felt horrible running it because I kept trying to explain what I was doing and failing because I was focusing too much on the build or on the like rotation and everything. I know it's funny to say that I'm focusing on the Guardian Druid rotation, but it is a change for me. So that was pretty rough. But I then decided to run an Underrot. I think it was a 16. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe a 17. Whatever it was, I decided to not talk during it and just record a commentary for it after having run it. And I have to say that was a very, very enjoyable run. Like, it was frustrating at the end because of different reasons, and you've seen that, but it was a very, very good run. Like, I really enjoyed myself. I felt like it was a lot more fun, and I think that I might do this going forward with other runs. Let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear from you. If you're someone who watches the channel regularly, or even if you're just someone who's new, how do you feel about me commentating over it after it's already been done, like just narrating over a pre-recorded video? In the next episode, we'll do some more fortified keys. I think one or two more fortified keys. And if it's just one fortified key, then it'll be also one tyrannical key with the newest affixes on August 16th, 2023. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode.